Hey, welcome to ColleidoCast with War and JT, and they're the only two guys on the internet who are really good at talking about movies and stuff. Well, I mean, like it's mostly movies. It's really only movies, to be honest. Yeah. Get ready, grab your popcorn. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. And we are live. Hello, hello.
Hello?
All right, we're going. We're
Hello,
doing
is this the
this.
show? Are
This
we
is
on?
the show. It's on. Things are moving around. It's great. All
What
right.
show is this?
This
Are
is
we on
ColleidoCast.
Oh my god, what a
Welcome.
great show.
Welcome, everybody, boys and girls of probably not all ages. Once again to ColleidoCast.
Welcome all women aged 18 to 26. We know that's who's watching the show.
Probably.
And for good reason.
All right, so this week we are talking about, what are we talking about? The Dark Tower, is that right?
The Dark Tower, was this 2017, 2018 this came out?
Yeah, this is 5 years ago, unfortunately.
5 years ago, how time flies. I've just seen, Tuesday was my first time seeing this movie. I heard, I mean, I never really assumed that it was anything worth watching. But you know what?
What do you think now?
We'll get into it.
Like just overall, generally.
Overall, I think it was a fine movie. It's a bit bland, a bit generic, but it's 29 or not 29. It's 90 minutes flat.
Which I appreciate. I'll be honest. I do appreciate that.
I feel like it was a bit rushed in parts. You could, especially the end, and we'll get into that. But
yeah,
I thought it was a fine adaptation of the Dark Tower series.
Yeah, I got a ton of notes on this movie. So yeah, I guess a little bit of background for this movie was the start of what was supposed to be like $1 billion franchise. They spent a lot of money trying to get this thing. Yeah, it was. They were gonna take this movie and try to transition it into a show, which I guess they could have done. But there's a lot about the movie that just, at least as far as like the source material goes, doesn't really fit too well.
I feel like trying to make a TV show would be stupid.
Really?
This came up every single thread. People would be like, this should be the next Game of Thrones. And there's no way that a Dark Tower TV show could ever compete with Game of Thrones. Maybe now, admittedly, this was during Game of Thrones' run before it completely shit the bed and they, they fired all the writers and they filmed an entire episode with no lights on. So maybe now in retrospect that Game of Thrones, that the final, 2.5 seasons of Game of Thrones had such a sharp decline, maybe a Dark Tower series could work now. At the time, in 2017, I don't think it would have. It would have just invited inevitable comparisons to Game of Thrones, and they never would have topped it.
So how well known do you think the series is overall?
The Dark Tower series?
Yeah, like just in general. Because it's.
I mean, Stephen King is. I mean, obviously, J.K. Rowling is the most famous author.
Because of the movies, yeah.
Presumably. Well, no, I mean, Harry Potter was $1 billion franchise, I think, before the movies even came out. I don't know why they were so popular. But before J.K. Rowling hit the scene, Stephen King is the all-time #1 American author. In fact, he probably still is, because J.K. Rowling's not an American author, so I don't think anyone is more prevalent than Stephen King. That said, I don't think The Dark Tower has a lot of fans, even among Stephen King fans, because, one, I don't think they're his best books. Two,
I would agree with that, yeah.
They also have a pretty, and I don't want to say it's as steep as a decline as the Game of Thrones television show went, but the last 2.5 books of the Dark Tower series, I think, really let a lot of people down. Thirdly, Stephen King just isn't known as a fantasy writer. He's got The Eyes of the Dragon and The Dark Tower. I don't think he's really. I guess you could say The Talisman is a fantasy
Yeah,
story.
I've not heard of
but even
two of
that,
those.
you've not heard of The Talisman?
The Talisman or Eye of the Dragon.
The Eyes of the Dragon, or the Eye. I'm not sure if it's plural eyes or just the Eye of the Dragon. That I don't think is one of his more popular ones, but definitely check out The Talisman. That's a fantastic book.
Okay.
But no, I don't think that The Dark Tower has a following, especially not a following like the Game of Thrones books have and have had.
Yeah.
But regardless, this is a movie. It's not a book.
Right. Yeah. No. The reason I asked that was because, just pretty much from the get go, like the second the movie starts, it's almost like they're showing a bunch of stuff that you should know about. And it's a lot of weird like visual stuff, like the orphanage and or whatever that is. I guess it's not technically an orphanage, but they have these kids and they're strapping them to these chairs, and they're somehow like taking the mental energy or something.
The Shine.
Yeah.
It's called The Shine. I don't even
Which
know
you find
if
out
the
later.
term The Shine is used in the Dark Tower series. I know it's like
Right.
it ties into like everything else, but that
Yeah,
was cool.
yeah.
It was cool knowing that this is related in a sense to The Shining.
Mm-hmm.
Even if the movies are just so drastically different. But I'll tell you what, before I want to get into this movie, I sort of want to talk about the various characters, because we've got, I think, 3 characters, right?
You got 3
Jake.
main characters, yeah.
Jake is almost, I would say Jake is the main character in this movie. For
100%.
It's not Roland, it's Jake.
100%.
He's great. He's a kid actor. He does a great job during the entire movie. There's a scene where he's crying, and it doesn't make me just want to turn the TV off.
Actually, like, makes sense and looks good. And
yeah. He feels real. He's a troubled teenager. Not sure how old he is. He might only be like 12 in this movie.
I think he's preteen still at this point.
Preteen.
Yeah.
We've got Roland Deschain, who is the titular gunslinger. His character, I'll tell you, what I didn't like about Roland's character design, one, the guns. The guns
Really?
looked terrible.
Okay.
So throughout the series, the book series, it's constantly referred to how huge and hulking these guns are. They're beautiful. They look like art. They've got like handles that are carved out of ivory. Everyone who picks them up is shocked by how heavy they are. They can barely wield these things. In this movie, they looked like dirty old 6-shooters that you would see in a Western.
Yeah,
there was nothing magnificent about these weapons. Roland's weapons, and he's a gunslinger. Like, admittedly, the movie's very different from the books.
Very.
But he's still a gunslinger, and that they even shoehorn that awful line where the what is it? The man in black fled across the desert, and the gunslinger followed, which Stephen King has constantly jerked himself off over as being one of the best opening lines. But to me, I've always thought that line was mundane. I never thought it was special. Everyone, and people seem to defend this as being a great opening line in a book solely because King has jerked himself off. So he's literally jerked himself raw over this line. And they fucking put that line in the movie with no context. The scene just fades to black at one point, and a narrator, and there's no narrator throughout the entire movie, but a narrator comes in, and she's a woman, and she says, the man in black fled across the desert, and the gunslinger followed. That's all. That's not even relevant to this movie, because the movie's so different that Roland never pursues the man in black across the desert. Like, that felt like, it felt like Stephen King demanded that line be in the movie in order to sell the rights. I don't like that had to have been contractual because it made no sense. It felt so out of place.
I mean, I suppose when you finally do meet Roland, he is in the desert or the wasteland or whatever, and he's going somewhere. And I guess he's going after Walter, who is the man
Yeah,
in black.
he's looking for the man in the black, but he's at the end of the desert because
You're
he
just
meets
dropped
Jake in
into
the
it though.
desert.
Like you're just
You
dropped
drop
into
into
it,
it.
you know, and it's a little it's a little what's the word I'm looking for? Like it's just weird. Like you don't really know what the hell's going on. You don't know why he's there. They don't really explain a whole lot because pretty much up until this point, you've seen one other scene with Roland, and
And that's the
when
dream sequence.
that's when he's taken on.
The first act is very heavy in dream sequences, which is okay. This is a fantasy
Yeah.
movie, and you can't. It's tough, I think, to jump right into a fantasy world when you also have part of the movie taking place in New York. So that was fine. My second complaint about Roland's guns, the sound design was bad. The sound of the gunshots felt so muted. I would like to compare this movie to Open Range, where you can actually hear the echoes of the reports of gunfire.
Hmm.
The sound design of Roland firing just feels so underwhelming. I mean, he does kill a lot of people with his guns at one point. He does some cool things and does some stupid-looking things. And then the third character is Matthew McConaughey as the Man in Black, who I had said from the get-go that Matthew McConaughey would have been the perfect casting choice
For Roland.
for Roland.
Yeah.
Because
he looks like a cowboy. Like,
yeah, and if
straight up.
you've seen, if you've read through the illustrated versions of the Dark Tower series, the depictions of Roland are identical to. Not identical. They look very much like Matthew McConaughey, especially if you've seen him, like any movie where he like breaks down and cries, which is a lot of his movies. He just has that big grin, or like when he's laughing, but he's like when he's he does this pained laugh that is sort of that's what I think of when I think of Matthew McConaughey, is him delivering that pained laugh, because it's always so, and it's packed such a punch. But he's terrible in this movie. I felt like he phoned in the entire performance. Admittedly, part of this might have been the writing, because all of his lines are just like two words. He delivers lines the entire movie.
Well, let's kind of explain why that might be, though. I think it's written into the character, and what I'm getting at is the fact that we're talking about a guy, and I don't think he can do this in the book, but we're talking about a guy with like Dr. Manhattan power levels, just about, where he can just tell people to stop breathing. And there's like one person.
Breathing. He does that numerous times. A lot of his lines are just delivering a single command.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
not a whole lot of talking. Yeah, for sure.
But then even in the final showdown, he's like doing his like magic, and he just looks so bad and awkward. It's like he's not even doing it. He's just standing there like this, and you can just tell that whatever they were trying to do was supposed to be just a CGI. Like they were just gonna CGI in whatever was happening.
So here's a picture of him stopping some glass that Roland shot from the ceiling.
Does it look cool, or does it look retarded?
It looks like, you know, if you're not watching the movie, it looks like he's about to die. But once he stops it, there's like it follows there where he takes the glass shards, and he's still kind of like holding his hands in front of him, and he just starts like doing this number where he just shoots little pieces of glass at him like this. I'm like, bruh, they had wands in Harry Potter, and we're just doing like these little, you know, numbers, and it looked a million times better because it was just better choreographed somehow. Like, I don't know how you choreograph magic very well, but
holding the wand sort of gives you something physical and tactile to thrust. His like little like wrist movements just
they're weird. It's like
looked awful.
But yeah, it was. I'm with you there. It was definitely a little weird. And then some of the stuff Roland did in this movie, it was just
He had
Stupid.
some pretty retarded action sequences when he does that slide at the end, and he's just
Hmm.
like sliding along the ground, and he just doesn't stop, and it's so stupid.
It's
Like,
the Matrix, basically.
yeah, I mean, that was what I. There's the other terrible sequence that Roland was involved in is when he dives off of like a balcony down to a lower level, and he's got his guns out, and it's some of the worst wire work I've ever seen in a major box office release like this. And yeah, you sort of have to ask yourself, is this supposed to be a John Woo movie? Is this supposed to be The Matrix? Because Roland is this like old guy, which that's another complaint. The actor was way too old to be playing Roland, and I know Roland's age comes into play in the later books. Um, but if they had any intention of this being a long running series, the casting was way off because that dude looks like he's literally got one
Yeah.
foot in the grave.
Well, I think I sort of disagree there. I also just really like Idris Elba. I think he's a good actor.
I mean,
But
he's a fine actor, but I felt that he was just too old to be
okay,
playing
yeah.
this action hero. Especially, like, again, if this was going to be a series where they have 7 seasons, what's this guy going to look like
Yeah.
7 to 9 years from now?
I think
He's
I
going to
follow
be
that.
an old, gaunt grandpa.
Yeah, that would definitely be a risk for sure. So Roland is very different looking in this movie than in the books, and as someone who
Namely, he's
didn't,
black. He's
yeah,
black in the movies. He's white in the books. That
yeah,
doesn't really matter, though.
yeah, and I'm not making a thing about that, but if you read the books, or at least some of them, and you saw this trailer, you're probably wondering like, well, that's not Roland. And Stephen King himself, I had to find this out through just a little bit of research, I guess, but evidently the books end in such a way where it's basically possible for new
I don't
universes or
know
something that
about
are
that.
also.
That
That's
that
what he
seems
said.
that didn't make any sense to me.
I
But
know it's
he's got to
weird.
defend the movie.
Um,
Stephen King has always defended any. Well, not always. He's actually been really critical of some movies, specifically The Shine. But he also, I remember reading interviews where he talked about how great this TV show Under the Dome was,
mhm.
and how it was better than his book. Which, admittedly, Under the Dome isn't one of his better books. But fuck, dude, the Under the Dome TV show is possibly one of the worst things that has ever been released based on a King property. I mean, I'm sure there's tons of terrible television shows out there.
Yeah.
Under the Dome was fucking trash, and Stephen King's trying to shill this. So I don't blame him for wanting this movie to be successful and trying to justify all of the changes they've made.
Well, it's one of his most well-known book series. So, well, it's also his only book series that I know of. I don't think he had. I think they're all just one-offs after that. But they're all connected, which is pretty interesting. I do like that about his books. Um, and man, even if they did make a series out of this, like just some of the stuff. I've read 3 of the books. I actually really liked all 3 that I read, and you told me to finish the 4th, which I'll get around to eventually. Um, and just kind of going ahead and looking some stuff up because I just spoil myself sometimes on older properties. It's just what I do. You get interested in like these giant universes, so you kind of want to take a peek at the future a little bit. But yeah, I read some things that were like, wow, this might be some of the worst writing devices I think I've ever read. It's like
I mean, I never hated anything that was going on in the Dark Tower.
I don't want to
series.
get too into it because I don't want to spoil stuff or people want to read it. We're
You
talking about the movie.
specifically hate the metafiction portions, which I can understand
Yeah,
finding that.
but I'm not going to say
Uh,
exactly what those are, so read it if
I
you want to.
mean, I think everyone's gonna understand what you mean by metafiction. But so the movie starts out. We've got Jake. He is in therapy because he has these dreams of the Dark Tower, and he's actually a very talented artist. He draws all of these images of Roland, of the Man in Black, of the Tower, of various locations and various places in Midworld?
Midworld, yep.
In Midworld, and his parents are like shittiest parents ever because instead of like encouraging him with this great art, they put him in therapy, even though like what he does in the movie isn't any different from any other kid having any sort of imagination and like trying to invent stuff. But we see the bad guys, which are these rat people with human skin that they wear, and they're always twitchy, and their faces are always kind of fucked up. Gave me big vibes from Jacob's Ladder.
Oh yeah, I
And
could see that.
they looked great. The bad guys in this movie looked great. A lot of the CGI and effects looked great. Not all of them, but the rat people, fantastic.
They might have been the best part of the movie just from like a conceptual standpoint, you know.
Yeah, I think so. And execution, conceptual and execution, because like they've got the scars running behind their hairline, which looks great, or behind their ears. There is so at the beginning, Jake he dreams that these rat people exist, and this is like
He dreams about the orphanage tower thing. Yeah.
I feel like they could have leaned more into him having these phobias of rat people trying to get him, and that sort of would have made more sense about like why he needs therapy, because then it would actually be manifesting itself as some sort of delusion instead of just a kid who draws pictures. Maybe there's some scenes on the cutting room floor that we never saw that would have established that better, but his parents make arrangements, or rather his parents are contacted by a school, right? And this school is actually run by these demon people. And I guess we should explain. So Jacob, or is his name Jacob, or is it just Jake?
It's just Jake.
It's just Jake. So why he has these dreams is because he's got these psychic abilities, which the psychic abilities, this part isn't really explained either, but they're essentially harnessing the psychic abilities from these kids to shoot laser beams at the tower to try to knock it down.
And every time they do that, I think it's only in Midworld, I could be wrong, but they have these earthquakes, and there's a point where
I don't think so. No, because
is
there's
it everywhere?
news reports. There's news reports.
You're right. Yeah, I forgot about
say
that.
Unexplained, earthquake activity all across the world.
But apparently Roland is pretty used to these, because you see that the beams shoot up from the little orphanage thing and hit the dark tower because they're trying to destroy it, and he looks up and he goes, "Oh, beamquake."
Yeah, they see the beam, which really he's looking for, and this is one of the big plot concerns I have. So he's trying to find the Man in Black, but if these beams are regularly shooting across the sky, those are essentially a big giant glowing
target.
Arrow pointing exactly where he needs to go. So I felt that was they tried to incorporate the beams from the book, and they turned them into something completely different. And even in the book, I remember thinking the phrase "beamquake" sounded so stupid.
Because it does sound stupid.
In the context of the book, there could never have been more than 6 total beamquakes in all of history.
Now,
for them to know what a beamquake is, doesn't make sense.
If I'm not mistaken, the beams are they're connected to the tower, right? And there's like 2 realities on each side or something like that.
In the book, the Dark Tower is sort of
it's the center point
by these 6 beams that come from like these 6 pylons, and they're invisible. They're just energy beams.
Yeah.
And the children with the psychic powers just sort of like chip away at the beam, and then the beam eventually breaks. That obviously would never translate into a visual medium. So I didn't necessarily hate the whole idea where it's like, okay, we're gonna take these, this energy and just make it a weapon. It's just a weapon. You can see it. There's explosions. That I felt was fine.
Yeah, I didn't. I guess I don't want to get off topic on the whole beamquake thing, but one thing pretty early on that happened, and you don't really get much more on this, is Roland's backstory here is just, and I know he's not like the main character, but they made an attempt to flesh out his character just a little bit with the whole, here's his dad, he's fighting Walter with his dad.
Mm.
Walter killed his dad, and he tries to shoot him, and Walter just catches the bullet like it's no problem. So
Walter catches the bullet. I'll tell you what was weird about that. They kept saying Jake kept saying that there was like a field of bodies, but there was like literally no action in this sequence. It was just Roland, his dead dad, and Walter. Like there was no sense that it was part of anything or part of some battle. I don't know if it was supposed to be like the Battle of Jericho or
it felt
something, or
weird.
like the fall,
It did.
or the fall of the gunslingers.
Yeah.
But it almost feels like a scene that they recorded after the movie,
Right.
and they're like,
Because
well, they're like, we can't have Roland not show up until 40 minutes. I'm like, oh, we'll just have him appear in a dream sequence, you know?
yeah, I could see that reasoning because he is sort of the guy that everyone's here to actually see. So
Yeah, it was a strange decision, I feel, to make the main character Jake instead of Roland. But I don't know. I don't know.
I think the
Uh,
I think the director even came out and said that they should have done that. They should have made Roland the main character, and I definitely agree with that.
I mean, I get that. So the movie is The Dark Tower. This isn't The Gunslinger. It's not based on any one particular book. It's just sort of the same universe. A reimagining of the Dark Tower universe, at least.
Hmm. Um, I think after I finished watching this movie, one of the one of the problems I think that happened during the making, and this is just from what I was seeing in the movie, but it looks like maybe I was a little off on that, was it's like they took at least the first three books, and I guess parts of other of the books, and they just compiled it all into 1 hour and a half long movie, which to me is a huge mistake, especially if you're trying to make a fleshed out universe that's going to go on for more than
You see, I
couple
felt
movies.
that was the smartest thing they could have done.
You think
Like,
so?
what do you? I mean, almost nothing happens in the Gunslinger. He gets raped by a demon. Like, it's stupid. It's stupid. They remake the demon in this movie, and it just shows it appears as their fathers,
Oh
both
no, I see what
Roland
you're
and
saying. Yeah.
Jake. So, the first book really didn't even have a major antagonist. There was just the Man in Black, and he
Yeah.
was just this thing that Roland was questing towards.
They
So I
they
think establishing what the Dark Tower is, I think establishing that there's this, crew of people that want to destroy, that are enemies of the Dark Tower, and that you've got, there could have been some more fleshing out of what gunslingers are, since I feel like that
absolutely.
is, well, one, that is what everybody wants, is they want gunslinging action, and two,
Hmm.
I feel like that's the draw, and that is also your only avenue for action to take place.
Pretty much, yeah.
Any sort of meaningful action,
Yeah.
like one of the worst scenes I thought. So, uh, the parents get in touch with this school and they come, and Jake very quickly realizes that they're these rat people, and he escapes out the window. And this leads to one of the worst chase scenes I've ever seen, because this big fat dude, like as if this is totally normal, jumps out the window, climbs up under the roof, and is like suddenly doing all this shit. Like his parents would never have accepted that as being normal,
No, I
right?
agree with that. Yeah.
It was so bizarre. He meets the homeless guy who is one of the Root. If you've gotten to the fifth books,
No, I didn't catch that. I didn't know what that was about.
he was Root. He was one of the kids, and they sucked all the power out of him to work at one of these labs.
Uh-huh.
And in the books, they essentially were just like these slow. And I don't know if I'd call them necessarily retarded. But then again, I don't even remember if they spoke. They just, they had gifts. They were. They
Just
had
like
shine is what it was called repeatedly in this movie. And when the shine is all sucked out of them, they are just like these sort of husks that can no longer function. So that's what the homeless guy was. I'm pretty sure. But Jake eventually escapes by going into this house that he dreamt about. And there's a portal.
yeah.
There's just a portal in there. And he's attacked by a demon, this demon is just, there's no real manifestation of a demon. It's just a bunch of boards get ripped off of the floor and like attack them, and then the demon just dies suddenly for no reason. It was a garbage
Yeah,
scene.
and later on, because that was apparently like one of Walter's little
They
traps or
do
whatever. It's
they
like,
do
yeah,
say that
he
he
killed it.
killed them with the shine. Like how?
Yeah, it just kind of
Why? When? Like
happens.
what? Did something trigger? Like was he like stressed out and he goes ah? Like there could have been any way. Like even if he did something that seemed completely unexplained, like he goes ah and like a bunch of light shoots out and then like all the boards fall, you'd be like, okay, I don't know what happened, but something happened. And then Walter says, oh, he killed the demon with his shine power. You'd be like, that's what that was. The scene that we got was it's just a CGI clusterfuck action scene where you can't tell what's happening, and then it ends as suddenly as it begins.
And this is the demon in question, which is basically just a bunch of torn up floorboards
Yeah,
and a
I did not
tornado
think the
kind of thing.
CGI. I mean, it was passable, but it was clearly fake. Whereas like the demon guy or the rat people look terrible, but Jake gets through and he is transported to the desert of Midworld, and it looks fantastic. All of
Yeah,
those sequences where he's with the mountains, and there's like cliffs, and there's dust devils, and the dust devils are like CGI, and like there's clear blending of CGI and like digital effects and actual landscapes, and it's done so well. I'm sure if you paused it, you could be like, okay, this is where they had stuff green screened out, but it is such a great usage of the technology. Like this is what computer graphics are supposed to add to movies to make it look huge, to make these landscapes come alive. Like, there was this one part where they have like these big cities built into the side of this mountain. It looked
hmm
fantastic. I loved the whole sequence that they were in the desert. It sucked that it was only like 15 minutes,
yeah, it wasn't
maybe.
long. Yeah,
But goddamn, that part really stood out.
but yeah, now that you say that, I did kind of get like Lord of the Rings sort of vibes because every time they
Very Lord
went,
of the Rings.
yeah, every time they
Dude,
went somewhere new, they would they'd show you
you'd
basically
have
where they were.
sweeping landscape shots,
It's great
and
stuff.
they looked fantastic, and the color palettes were all great.
Yeah.
And then like almost like where Roland's like hanging him over the cliff, like that all looked good, even though it was obviously not a cliff, but it looked great. And then they're just suddenly in the forest, like the next scene, which I don't know.
This is where you
I didn't like.
see the first demon, right? Is that right? I
Well,
think
the
so.
first demon would be that house demon, which was literally the
Sorry.
house.
Yeah.
But no, we see there is a fallen Ferris wheel. There is an old broken down remnants of a roller coaster, and he's like, "Oh, this is like a theme park."
hmm
And I thought that was a great set piece. At first, I thought the Ferris wheel was digitally added, and maybe it was for parts. And I'm like, okay, like that looks cool. Like, why is that? Like, what's going on here? And then he fights a demon, and he climbs up this broken Ferris wheel. And it was a great set piece. I thought it made a great place to focus that action.
And this is kind of in the dialogue where they sort of took some of the stuff from the books, which is people in Midworld for whatever. It's sort of implied in the books, and I guess here too, that Midworld is like this far gone post-apocalyptic sort of
Yeah,
world.
that was always my take. Was that it was literally like
hmm
hundreds of thousands of years in the future, which I don't see when Stephen King wrote the books. I don't think he knew when he wrote that first one, like, okay, this is a place that's going to be X number of years in the future. And I think he sort of pieced a lot of, because the Dark Tower books do have internal inconsistencies, and like a lot of it is just never really explained. So we don't know if this is like 20,000 years in the future, if this is 5,000 years, if it's 100 years.
Yeah.
I think the strangest part from the book was that the size of the Earth in Midworld was like hundreds of times, maybe not hundreds of times, but it was significantly larger than our Earth. Which you say, how does that make any sense?
It doesn't. Yeah.
And well, here's so the Earth accumulates about 1 ton of space dust that just comes in, from matter in our solar system that just sort of falls into Earth from gravity, and that's like you think a ton is a lot, 2,000 pounds, but that's
Yeah.
it's a fraction of the Earth. But you know, imagine if millions of years go by of that accumulation. Would Earth become larger? And there's also 2 moons, in fact, that are shown
Yeah, it's true.
in
Yeah.
Midworld. I don't know if that was ever the case in the book, if it specified there was more than 1 moon. So the fact that there's 2 moons makes you think that this isn't Earth in the future. But who the fuck knows?
I'm
Like,
gonna honestly, I'm gonna chalk that up to movie maker using
they
two
just wanted it to
moons.
look cool. Like, okay,
It's
this
to
is a
let it's
fantasy.
to let them know, okay, this isn't Earth.
This is different. We're in a different, faraway place. Look, there's 2 moons.
This is other Earth. This is Middle Earth. I mean Midworld.
Middle world. Yeah, I mean, I get it. Like, the fact that the source material is so like, it's so vague in a lot of things. Like, that, I get that makes a tough translation in the film because, again, if you really don't even know what it is, like, how do you translate that?
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you there. So here is where they I want to say this is where Roland describes what Walter's whole goal is, and the idea is to bring down the Dark Tower because in this version of the Dark
Ah,
Tower,
yes. Yes.
it's basically like the center point, and there's like a barrier around all the different universes, and if it goes down, the barrier goes down, and hell comes into all the universes basically.
Giant interdimensional eldritch hordes, you could call them.
Yeah, and here's one of those. And honestly, pretty generic demon monster, if I'm being honest. It's good looking. I mean, it's cool looking.
Is this the demon? I liked the monster version of the demon. I didn't like that weird cloud thing. I don't know if those were the same demon or if it like summoned the monster thing. The monster thing was cool. I like that it stabbed Roland.
I
And
want
it
to
makes
say,
sense that you could shoot something like that, but I swear that he shoots the cloud at one point and then the cloud disappears. I'm like, that's maybe not the best opponent for bullets.
yeah, that's kind of the answer for just about everything in the Dark Tower. Even the books is can we shoot this to death?
I mean, we do establish that there is high levels of radiation in Midworld.
Mm-hmm.
So that one you could lean on, like, okay, this is a post nuclear apocalypse world, which also gave an extra moon. But you could have had like swamp creature, like some sort of mutant swamp creature come up, and it's like they're like living in like the remnants of this theme park. That might have been more interesting because leaning so hard on all the magic stuff, it gets tough to suspend your disbelief when a man is shooting lead into an ethereal being.
Well, they quite literally established very early on that gunslinging is more or less no match for just magic stuff, because it's early on and it's at the end of the movie, or I think there's more times than just that. But every time he comes up to Walter, he does what he does best. He shoots. He shoot good, and he just catches the bullets. He flings them back at him. All this and that, and it's like the power disparity here is so ridiculous, and that plays in that ridiculousness plays in even more at the end, which I'm not going to talk about right now. But
I feel like that kind of makes sense. Like, you want your ultimate antagonist to be like something, he's like Roland has one trick, and that he shoots bullets, and of course, like, the one guy he can't kill is because he's like immune to bullets. That's kind of interesting, and of course he's not immune to the bullets at the end of the movie, which I also felt strange. I know that I think Walter dies in like I don't think he dies till book 5. Oh, he dies in book 1. Are you sure?
Well, Roland kills him, but he comes back later.
Okay.
Somehow, yeah, it's weird.
Okay, so if that's the case, then that again just sounds like Stephen King didn't know. He didn't really have a plan. And if you've read the forewords of any of the Dark Tower books, he freely admits that, like, when he started, he had no idea. how it was going to end, and he took like 20 years off.
Mhm. Mhm.
So where are we at? Then we've got the village scene where they come across the village. There's there's this cute girl that Jake and the girl are always like giving each other like eyes and stuff, but nothing is really ever. There's no payoff to that. Maybe like he ran in and saved her, or she saved him. She's like, "Come, but follow me," and like I don't know why they sort of introduced a potential love interest for our main character, and then she's gone 5 minutes later. That felt like wasted screen time.
Are you talking about the one that explains the shine to them? Is that the girl you're
No,
talking about?
that's the seer, which yeah, the girl that Jake is
Yeah, I don't even
eyeballing the
remember
whole
the
time.
girl you're talking about.
I don't even think she has a name. I literally think she's like
She's just set piece. That's yeah.
I think she was billed as just cute girl or something in the movie. I could be wrong.
That's pretty hilarious, actually. Yeah, that explains why I didn't know like just background characters like that. Oftentimes, I just kind of look past them, you know,
Hmm.
until they're actually introduced. But yeah, that's pretty funny. But yeah,
But
this is where you learn about essentially what the shine is, and it's kind of what you think
and
it is. It's
this is
ambiguous.
really the first action scene. I mean,
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
chase with the demon was good. When Roland was shooting the demon in cloud form, I'm like, what the fuck's going on? So we have a bunch of raiders come in. I don't know where these raiders come from. I don't know how they got there so fast, but a bunch of
Walter
raiders
sent
show
them,
up,
I guess.
and Roland shoots them all, and it's pretty good. I feel like Roland could have been a little bit more badass in this scene. This is where I started to feel underwhelmed by what the guns looked like
Whoa,
and what
whoa,
they
whoa!
sounded like.
Hold
I
on,
think
sir.
yeah, we've got the coolest scene in the movie where Roland shoots through like 5 things and clips this guy.
This guy runs. He's got Jake. He's running away. He's like 100 feet away or something. Roland's like, wait, hold on. I'm an expert. And he just holds the gun like to his side. He's not even looking
He's
that way.
listening. Like it
He's
gets
just
quiet.
listening.
He's
And
listening to the footsteps run through the brush.
perfect
And
headshot.
boom.
Perfect headshot.
It's fantastic.
Best guy to ever hold a gun. And I'm not gonna lie, I audibly with the rest of this movie, even like the jumping off the thing and like the sliding and all that, even with that, I said I audibly went bullshit. That's absolutely bullshit.
I mean, I thought it was a fine scene to emphasize
How
how
badass he is.
how incredible he is shooting these guns, and he makes his shot. And throughout the books, yeah, he literally never misses. Everything is a quick, he shoots 6 bullets and reloads in a fraction of a second.
Which was here. That was
There
here
was a
too.
cool reload scene when we finally got to the final act and the big climax at the end. He was like reloading, but I couldn't even tell what he was doing.
It was
I thought the editing on those scenes was pretty terrible. He
yeah.
had like this bandolier of bullets, and I don't know how he was getting the bullets into the revolver. It was
Yeah, there's a lot of that in this movie where like if you blink you'll miss it kind of stuff. The one time they made it like a prominent shot, and I wish more movies would do this, and I wish this movie did it more. Is like the first time you see him unload on probably Walter, I don't know, something, and
this is where he's fighting the demon, and he just flicks the bullets
yeah,
in
yeah,
real
yeah,
quick.
yeah, and
That was awesome.
that was great. He puts the gun down, flicks it open, like almost like a magazine. It was really cool. That
Yeah,
stuff is awesome. That's what I love
if
about this movie.
they needed some shots like that in the final action sequence, because the final action sequence
It's a mess.
was barely passable to me. But before we get there, so we have a lot. We're at village exposition, right? There's a lot of exposition given,
Hmm.
and the plot sort of falls apart for me here because it's established that Roland's goal is to track down and find the Man in Black. The Man in Black's goal is to track down and find Roland. It really feels like there shouldn't be an issue. They should just meet up. Like, what the hell are they doing?
Yeah, that falls apart pretty
Like
quickly.
Roland is trying to get to the Man in Black, and the Man in Black is literally tracking him throughout the movie with like his crystal balls and shit. It's like, hey, like he wants to find you. You want to find him. Why don't you just say, hey, stay there. I'll be there in like 10 minutes. Like let me go jump in my portal machine.
Yeah. There's
So that plot contrivance where they're both looking for each other just that it falls apart. Though as soon as you think about it, it falls apart.
Yeah, that's kind of a lot of this movie too, especially if everyone seems to know that the Dark Tower is what it's what it is. It's a protective barrier apparently. But they even mention or not mention, they show the Crimson King eye pretty early on, not to go back too much. And that's supposed to be like the main antagonist.
I guess it is, huh?
Yeah.
That's Randall Flagg?
Yeah, he's supposed to be the
Crimson
main
King.
bad guy of the whole Dark Tower universe.
He's the guy who sits on the throne of skulls, which...
So my question is, okay, so is the Dark Tower still like his thing, or like what's going on with that? Because it seems like you've turned it into something you don't want to blow up.
Yeah,
You
I
know?
was confused. I don't think the Dark Tower was...
I mean, it's
like,
not the bad guy. Maybe he's just in there. I don't know. It's real weird.
He is. I do believe that the Crimson King is crazy, and he's like on the balcony of the Dark Tower, and he lives there for eternity. But yeah, I was confused. I didn't understand. Maybe again, it's been a long time since I've read the books, but I don't remember it being framed as though we have to protect the Dark Tower.
It wasn't. It was we have to find it.
I didn't realize that I was rooting for the Dark Tower in this movie.
Yeah, basically that's how they set it up. It's real weird, especially when, in the books, the way it is framed, at least for the first 3 books, is we don't really know why, but we keep seeing this thing in our dreams, and we're trying to find it. That's what it is. They always have this dream about a field of roses, and in the foreground you see that.
The
background.
The fact that they kept the roses in Jake's drawings, and I don't remember there seeing roses in the actual scenes where the Dark Tower was visible, but when he drew the Dark Tower, it looked like one of the pieces of artwork. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just imagining this, but I believe that the Dark Tower was shown. Maybe I'll run and actually grab it off of my shelf. But I believe it showed the tower surrounded by a field of roses, and that was always one of my favorite. It was just great imagery.
Yeah, that actually is one of my favorite parts about the book. I love how we're talking way more about the books in the movie, but I mean, there's a lot to talk about, and there's a lot to talk about with how they tried to sort of like shoehorn this and that in the movie, and it's like you said, a lot of it like halfway through it stopped making sense. And my concern is, how do you make a series off of whatever was going on here? It's okay, you made a cool little action flick, sort of. Now what? There's so many really interesting characters. Just in the first, in the second book, really, is when they introduce like all the really interesting characters.
So he's literally holding a rose in the cover. I guess the entire dust jacket here really does show the tower in the field of roses.
In the background, yeah.
And let's see if I can specifically find the one that it looked exactly what Jake drew.
But
I guess this is not one of the ones that has the color illustration. So I just imagined it. I don't fucking know.
Yeah.
But we get through Exposition Village and they portal back to Earth because there's a portal on Earth that can then portal to the Man in Black, which I didn't understand how the portal system worked at all. Because they even said we can't portal you because such and such is monitoring all portal activity. But then they're like, okay, but we can portal you to Earth?
I think I complained about that or something. Like, again, you know what? I'm just going to, from here on out, every stupid plot thing, it just is what it is. I don't know what really to tell you there. But yeah, they go to New York. They're trying to find another portal.
The parts in New York where
Well,
Roland is interacting with modern day New York, that was part of my favorite,
yeah,
some of my favorite parts of the movie.
this was probably the best part of the movie, and I think it's ripped directly out of the second book because there's a part.
Drawing of the three with the Coke.
Yes. Yeah.
Dude, I could not help but he's like holding this Coke can like this and like drinking from it, and it's like they obviously did not get they obviously never signed the contract to get the product placement of Coke in there, and it was the most unnatural thing. Which again, I guess a man from Midworld wouldn't know how to like use an aluminum can, but like the way that they covered up the Coke logo, I just had to laugh at it. And that part, I actually he was like, what is this? And Jake says sugar. Like that.
It's true.
That sort of fell apart for me. Like, he doesn't go. He should have been like knocked on his ass when he takes a sip of this. Like Jesus. And Roland knows what sugar is.
Right.
There's sugar in Midworld. Like that part seemed kind of weird, but I hate to like complain that they just changed, that the scene didn't work exactly like it was in the books. But when they changed it, it sort of stopped making sense a bit.
Like the rest of this movie, yeah.
Like what 12-year-old kid gives you a can of Bob and says, "Here, this is sugar. You're gonna like it." Like I've never even used the word sugar in my entire life up until I was like 26, and I was like, man, maybe I should watch how much sugar I'm consuming.
Okay. I don't know. Like, it would make. Maybe it's writing. Maybe it's just dialogue. It's like, okay, you know what? Just tell him it's sugar. It's fine. We're not gonna sit here and explain what Coke is.
Like I could see like he sips this and goes, "Oh, what is this?" And the kid says Coke, and that would literally mean nothing to Roland. It would be it's a cool way that you could have a product placement in the movie that's not obnoxious.
Mm-hmm.
Because like, oh yeah, kids drink Coke. You would go to a store and get a Coke. Or go to a vending machine and a can of Coke comes out.
But
like,
there's
that makes sense.
Yeah,
but the fact that they went to such lengths to hide the fact that it was Coke made that scene feel weird.
Yeah.
At least that's how I felt anyway. I mean, I could see why.
Well, his whole
would
thing.
from that
Well,
scene.
his whole thing here was I think just to be really awkward in this place he's not from. Like this is like another world. You have to keep that in mind. So I think you're kind of meant to feel that way a little bit, but also on top of the Coke, there's like the penicillin thing. He goes and gets because he's got an infected arm and stuff. And he goes to get guns, Matrix style. He just break into the gun store.
Was one of my least favorite scenes. The fact that Roland just walks in there and points the gun at the guy and says, "Give me all your shit."
That felt weird.
It made him look like the bad guy. And then as soon as he walks in, he's got the gun pointed, and Jake's like, "Hey, he's not gonna hurt you." Like,
he's not gonna hurt you, but give us all your guns.
It did not garner any sympathy for Roland. Of course, in the books, he tries to buy the ammo, and because he doesn't have like normal
money
currency, he doesn't have ID. I think it's a big part. He doesn't have like a license for his guns and shit. Like he has some issues getting the guns, so he has to he has to sort of go the action route then to get supplied. That doesn't happen here. And then the man in black like takes over the mind of the shop owner, and he's shooting, and he's like, "It's not me shooting the gun." Like, that was just fucking awful writing.
Well, that adds on to sort of, again, the power disparity here with the man in black. It's like, dude, if you want to kill Roland, just control like everyone in New York
and have him go shoot something. Just have him shoot him in the head when he's asleep.
Or right? Just anything.
Like the man in black wasn't even there. He was astrally projecting into that
room
in New York.
That's true. He showed up for a second, but yeah, it's like you said. He sort of did the famous Luke Skywalker Jedi mind trick in that really bad movie.
Yeah, we really don't even know. So the man in black has killed Roland's father and everyone he knows because his magic doesn't work on Roland for reasons.
Whatever.
He's the chosen one. He's the hero. He's got mental fortitude. I can buy that. But I never why does the man in black want to kill Roland so bad to begin with? I never understood. I never quite figured that out. It seemed like he could have just left well enough alone and like what the hell would Roland be doing? He
Well, I will say this: he probably does want to kill him because he's, as far as he knows, the only guy who can actually resist his, I guess, mental. I think Walter is using the shine. He calls it magic, but I'm pretty sure it's the shine.
he calls it magics.
Yeah, whatever.
Plural. He has magics.
He has many magics, and because of that, and Roland knowing what Walter wants to do, he's like, okay, you know what? Let's just get rid of this guy, and then I'll go on and do my whole demon lord thing.
I liked how I did like that Walter made Jake's mom just spontaneously combust. That was she's just a burn mark in the ground afterwards.
Yeah, and
they had to get that PG-13 rating. That's one of the things that King actually said. He's like, I don't think they should have made it PG-13 because that takes too much away from
make it R because it's an R kind of book.
I mean,
it
they
always
don't make
has
R
been.
movies anymore. There's no R movies.
I don't know. Like every now and then you see him, like I don't know, Guns Akimbo. That's a pretty good R movie.
You know what? Guns Akimbo was fun, and even watching Guns Akimbo, like I remember thinking, okay, they cut something there because it would have. The fucking censor bureau told them that was too much. And if we ever do a review, I don't want to scoop myself, but if we ever do a review on Guns Akimbo, I'll talk about it. But yeah, Guns Akimbo is a great movie. It reminds me of fuck. Let's not talk about Guns Akimbo. Back to
we're pretty much
movie.
We're pretty much at the tail end here anyway.
We're at the end. Yeah,
so.
He goes and he arms up for the final conflict, and the final conflict he breaks into his house. He's shooting a bunch of people. At one point, he picks up a propane tank, tosses it across to the other side of the room, and shoots it, and it blows up. This dude didn't even know what sugar was. How does he know what a fucking propane tank is? How does he know that it's gonna blow up?
Stop thinking.
Yeah, stupid. And then
that's what I got from
where
this.
He dives off, and it's the most obvious wire work I've ever seen. Come on, he's like 90 years old. It looked so bad.
What's funny is Idris Elba has been in like Marvel movies. He was what's his face in the Thor movies. I cannot remember that guy's name.
He was the guy. Isn't he like the guy?
Heimdall, I think. He's the bridge guy.
Like the bridge.
Yeah,
he
he's the bridge guy.
the bridge. Yeah, he's the only black guy in Asgard.
Yes. Well, not anymore because he's dead. But
oh wait. Oh, you mean in the movies? Okay.
Yeah, he's gone. That character's gone. But yeah. So it's always funny to me, and I felt this way with Breach as well, with the couple of actors in there that have been in much better movies, at least more successful movies. And again, I don't want to say like this is the shittiest movie I've ever seen or anything like that.
It's perfectly watchable. This whole movie is watchable.
It's entertaining. It's an entertaining movie. It's worth a watch. Go for it, But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of this like kind of turn your brain off kind of stuff. I think the writers probably. Man, I just don't know. There's a lot of source material here.
Could have been tightened up. The final battle.
Yeah.
Final battle wasn't so bad. The CGI looked terrible. Matthew McConaughey's acting in the final fight looked terrible. They're in like this hallway in this face-off. Roland does that stupid slide that doesn't look remotely feasible, realistic, or cool.
No.
but,
Again, Matrix. It looks like Matrix to me.
Something that I don't know what they were getting at, but by the end of the fight, Roland had stigmata wounds. Did we talk about this? Did we mention this during the watching, where he gets to slice a glass through the one hand, and then Walter throws the other bullet and hits him in the other hand, so he's got two hands that are like bleeding from the palms, and by the end of the fight, and I don't know what they were getting at there. Are they trying to say Roland is like Jesus and he's saving the Dark Tower and thus saving everyone's souls? I don't know.
He would have to die.
It felt like a weird. I don't know. It just felt like they were trying to do something, but I didn't understand it. And then so he defeats the Man in Black. It actually is kind of cool how he beats him. He outsmarts him and he uses his cool gunslinging abilities as the best gunslinger ever to kill the Man in Black. And then Jake is strapped into the machine, and
Oh yeah, he got kidnapped by that.
he fires. Yeah, I don't even remember when he gets kidnapped.
Sometime before this, after the gun shop.
Oh yeah, I think he tries to get out of the gun shop, but the gate slides down, and Roland can't get out.
Yeah, they
And
separate him. That's what it was.
and yeah.
Yeah.
So he shoots like the one cuff because he's strapped in like a dentist chair, and he shoots the cuff off his one hand, and then it immediately cuts to Jake running out, and I'm like, it just felt like, did they really need to edit out the 3 seconds where he reaches over, pulls off the other cuff, and then fights with the helmet and rips it off, and then runs out, and then he fires a bullet into this weird chamber, this magic chamber, hits a machine, and then from the outside instantly it looks like an atomic bomb goes off inside of this building, and the whole thing collapses, and it's like, Jesus, that was a 10-second sequence where he fires, Jake frees himself, leaves, and then the whole entire place explodes in a nuclear explosion. I don't know, like, they really must have been trying to get that 90-minute runtime.
Yeah, I was about to bring that up actually.
It was like, felt so rushed, or like, did they just run out of money that they couldn't film a scene of like Jake pulling the thing, like his restraints off and like getting up, that they just, it immediately cuts to his sleeve blows off to he runs through and he hugs Roland. Like, it's instant. There's not even a breath taken.
I didn't think about the money aspect, but that might have very well been it. That might have been it, because
still, like, he's already in the chair. You just like film him like taking off. Again, it was so it felt so bizarre.
Do we know who published this movie? Who published it? It wasn't Warner Brothers, I don't think.
I don't think you publish movies.
Or who put it out? What studio was on at the top?
No, I don't know. Probably Sony, if I had to make a guess.
Yeah, they're not usually the best at putting movies together.
I have no idea who was involved in this movie, to be honest. I love that the posters all look great, though.
They do. They made it look so much cooler than it actually ended up being, which is really unfortunate. And then there was
produced by Ron Howard, actually. I mean, he's one of 3 producers. I don't know these other people. Production company. This was Columbia Pictures and okay. Weed Road Pictures. So there's 3 production companies involved, which probably isn't any positive sign. And then it was distributed by Sony Pictures.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Like, every time I see Sony on a movie, I'm always pretty skeptical. Just because there's none that stick out to me.
They're just the distributors, though. Like, they just acquire the rights when they can, and they own the rights of various things.
They have partners and stuff too, though. So.
Yeah, I don't know. I really didn't have too much written down about this. I don't know what else to say. It's passable.
Yeah.
Like, it's like. So much of the people bitching about how it's different from the books, I don't think that has any merit.
I don't really care so much that it was very different than the books. What I do kind of hate is the fact that they didn't take more from the books and really try to flesh some kind of cohesive, well-made narrative out of it. Because there's a lot you can take there. There's all the stuff that happens in 3. There's Blame the Mono. You could have easily ended on Blame the Mono. That would have been like a cool thing to do.
It ends with them like getting on the train and leaving wherever they're at.
Yeah, sure, why not?
Yeah, that would have been cool.
There's all the TikTok man. That's a pretty good villain to just throw into like the first movie.
This movie has your basic 3 acts, and it's got all of the beats of any like action fantasy type movie. It's nothing special. I'm gonna say it's not bad, but
Agreed,
it's nothing special.
Yeah, I agree with that. I guess last thing I can really say about it. I mean, we are rounding up on an hour now, and there's not much else to talk about here. It's a movie that I think it starts off relatively strong, and it ends on the total opposite end of the spectrum for me.
I feel like it does peter out, because when I started watching it, I'm like, this is so cool. Like the rat monsters, like the effects looked great. The sequence through the desert, just absolutely gorgeous. And then it seems like they didn't know what to do with themselves, and they just fell back on a lot of this kind of bullshit where it's like, oh well, there'll be a girl that has that Jake gets a crush on in this village, and then they're
And
like,
she disappears.
well, whatever. Yeah, literally, I think she helped them at some point, but like during the, I think he might have been following her during the raiding scene. She's so unmemorable that I don't even remember what she did. I just remember like they had the shots of like him looking at her and then she looked at him and like smiled. I'm like, oh, okay, this is going to be the love interest. Like they established that they filmed those shots, and then they didn't do anything with it.
I think this honestly, I think this movie was probably just another victim on the chopping block of every book movie trying to be Harry Potter.
Hold on. I gotta interrupt you because this is the Crimson King, and like, look how cool he is. He's on his throne of skulls. I don't know if I'm
Yeah,
able to
yeah,
focus,
yeah. We can see it there.
but all skulls. Such cool imagery. They needed a shot of the Crimson King
In a
couple
dream.
times. Well, no, like you have him just established as running whatever this corporation is that, you know, he's going to be established as Walter's boss. Like, who was Walter reporting to? Now that Walter's dead, what's going to happen? Like, they could have put a couple clips of the Crimson King. Like, if you've seen Alita the Battle Angel,
Oh, that movie's actually pretty good.
that movie is pretty good. It has its faults as well. But Tim Roth's character, you know, she's fighting like the bad guys down on Earth, but Tim Roth's character is just sort of seen as like a face, like in a projection a couple times. He's seen standing up on, you know, whatever that Elysium floating city is. That's what you needed to have the Crimson King's presence in this book. And like, you know, just have a shadowy figure. Like, like you don't have to like hold on him. Like, you know, Walter numerous times like uses these crystals like to project visions and stuff. Like he could have one of those, and like, you know, you see this looming sort of shadowy figure, and he's like, I want this
Shoot,
kid,
just
blah, blah.
just do the Thanos thing. We're like near the end of the movie or somewhere in the middle, you know, kind of do
Yeah,
what
like
you
an
said.
after the credit sequence.
Well,
where it
well, no,
shows,
not that.
where
I
it
just mean
pans
like
around, it's the Crimson King.
here's the guy you think is the actual bad guy, and he's talking to, you know, the Sith Lord, and he like kneels down or whatever. You know, just the typical like, okay, here's the real bad guy kind of thing.
I didn't feel as though they established this movie as being part of a larger whole.
I agree with that.
That's what lacking the sort of references to the Crimson King left. That's what having, you know, your antagonist die at the end with no next level.
Nothing to follow it up. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not surprised that they didn't make any sequels to this.
I mean, I guess there's hope. Who
surprised
knows?
they didn't try. I'm surprised they didn't try to like put out another movie. Unless this bombed, I guess I didn't do any research to the box office performance of The Dark Tower, but most media I saw was pretty negative.
I believe it bombed.
It bombed.
Yeah.
That's kind of.
It's a shame. It's kind of a shame because of what it is, but at the same time, the marketing could have been better. I don't know. A lot of stuff could have been better.
Also, I don't know if this is even the right sort of. I don't think the zeitgeist of our country or the world is in the right place for a Dark Tower series. You know?
Yeah.
I don't know what the fuck that means, but that's my closing statement, I guess.
Its time will come. I don't know. I always give it numbers for some reason, so I'm just gonna keep doing that. 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10.
Yeah, I'd give it a 6. I kind of want to say 7 because I really don't have anything bad to say about it. But these other movies that I really really liked, I've given like 7s and 8s to. So I guess I'll call it a 6. It's fine. If you like the movies, if you like the books, yeah, go ahead and watch it. Like it's not a adaptation of The Gunslinger.
No.
It's The Dark Tower. It's just, you know, a movie that takes place. You know, it's a reimagining. It's summarizing a lot of the shit, and it picks the parts that work from different books to make a coherent movie. Because you don't have like the 3 solid acts.
Relatively coherent.
Of those. Yeah, relatively coherent.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know. It's fine. Go watch it. I mean, it's at least an entertaining movie at the end of the day. You know, it's no Die Hard, but whatever.
Sure.
I guess with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up here. We don't have any comments in the chat, and I don't think we have anything in the Discord either. So
Nothing. We're just talking to ourselves.
we're just having a good old time here hanging out. But yeah, I guess with that, give us some feedback. Tell us what we did well. Tell us what we sucked at. And you, as always, you can find me on all the social medias that exist at JTFM. And where can they find you? And anything you want to plug?
I guess I'm doing my publishing house. I'm trying to. I'm
You
trying
guess?
to
I
edit
guess I'm
together
doing it.
some anthology. I don't know. I mean, yeah. If anyone here writes science fiction, look up at War Whiskey Books on Twitter. Send me something. These are paying gigs. Admittedly, I'm not paying top dollar, but I'm just getting
Entry level stuff.
yeah, this is entry level shit. Hopefully, if we see some success, I'll be able to grow the brand, pay more, get better writers. Maybe some bigger names involved. But that's what I'm doing right now. Using my knowledge of stories and storytelling to my advantage on any platform I can.
Alrighty, so definitely check that out. Obviously follow us on social media. Hell, join the War and Whiskey Discord channel, which
Come to the Discord. We're still doing 100 Days of War.
There's a few days left.
Self-improvement program. Yeah. Cool. 60 days. I think we got 60 days left.
But yeah, anyway, join us, follow us, give us some good feedback, and we'll see you next time, either at 7 or 8. I guess I should probably go ahead and throw this out there. Every now and then I have to work overtime, so if that gets thrown at me, I'm probably just going to do it at 8, because I don't get paid to do this. So
Not yet.
Not yet. Hopefully soon.
You can find us on Patreon, GATFM.
That's not true.
Wrong, not true. Maybe in the future, but this was our first official episode, right?
According
or
to you.
Is next episode our first official episode?
Episode 10, right? That's probably
every episode is episode 1. Great. This is like the real sketchy places that always say grand opening on them, or they always say we either say that or always like going out of business.
Yeah, well, how about this? The official episode 1 will be when I finally have a template, which should be soon. I got a guy working on it. Anyway, take it easy. We'll see you next week. Same day, probably same time. Goodbye.